Okay, good morning, everyone. Bon matin. It's an honor to be here, and I'd like to thank the Canadian Internet Society for organizing this important event. I want to start off with a show of hands. How many people have ever been to the Arctic? I see 5 hands. That's impressive. I figured about as much. I'm going to start off today with a visualization exercise, and I promise this isn't guided meditation, but if that's the kind of thing you like, enjoy. I want you to try and picture, or you can cheat and use Google, a small community in the Arctic. Uluhaktuk is a flying community of just over 400 people on Victoria Island in the Inuvialuit region of the Northwest Territories. And if you haven't already found it on Google Maps, think of where Alberta is on a map of Canada, go straight up towards the Arctic Circle. Uluhaktuk sits around a bay that flows directly into the Arctic Ocean. Food security largely relies on things like traditional hunting and food gathering because it's so expensive to bring goods in, like food and other materials. A carton of orange juice can cost $27. The community has some of the most incredible artists and makers of traditional arts and crafts. And when the occasional cruise ship comes in, this is a good day for sales. I wanted to bring this object in today, which I know might be hard for some to see, but hopefully the camera captures it, which is a polar bear carving because it's very symbolic to me about why we're here today. I bought this 5 years ago from a local carver that sold it to me for $40 to pay his internet bill. Think of this for a moment. A carver was willing to sell his artwork for well under what it was worth. If you've ever been into an Inuit art gallery, you'll know this, and chose to pay his internet bill over something else, like food. Now, what does this tell us about the internet? If there was any doubt about how critical the internet has become to our daily lives, it gets really clear when you understand the tough choices that some people have to make. Now, a lot of work has been done to expand internet infrastructure over the years, but it is still out of reach for many people. And this is not just in the north, this is in cities and communities across Canada. And sometimes it's simply because of the cost. Coincidentally, the reason I was in Uluhaktuk was because I was launching a partnership project between the Internet Society, the Hamlet of Uluhaktuk, the Inuvialuit Regional Corporation, and a few other local partner organizations. Our goal is to bring fast, affordable, and reliable internet to Uluhaktuk. Together, we train people to build a community network. This is like a DIY internet access solution. And we did this to make sure that people would never have to decide between paying for essential things like groceries or internet access, which is clearly very valuable in this community. Now let's come back to our present moment. There's a lot of reasons to feel on edge today. Professor Geist named many different reasons this morning. Looming federal election, decisions south of the border that could threaten our economy, our livelihoods, the cost of living. The fear and anxiety is 100% valid. There's so much at stake. And I hope that most people in this room have never had to make the choice between buying groceries or the internet. And I hope that nobody ever has to make that choice. But for people in both remote communities and urban areas across Canada, they're increasingly worried that they might have to make that decision. I am an eternal optimist, and the carving reminds me of why our work is so important. How the internet is so valuable as a resource to help us overcome our challenges. Through the internet, artists like the carver I met in Uluhaktuk was able to find ways to earn income in a remote part of the world that, as we saw from our show of hands, most people will never get to see. And that is just one of a million stories and examples of people using the internet in creative ways to earn income in Canada. But when it comes to digital access, it's not just enough to build the infrastructure. I keep a second carving on my desk that I brought from the same carver a few years later. The carver, and this is when we completed and launched the local community network. The carver needed to sell this half-finished carving. I know it's hard to see, but the edges are really rough, and you can see the shape of a polar bear, but it hasn't been smoothed and refined as much as the finished one on this side. The carver needed to sell this half-finished carving because his Dremel broke. It's not that he couldn't finish it because he didn't have the skill to do it. It's because he needed the tool to replace his Dremel, which is very essential to carving, and getting one into a remote community is not that simple. Like this carving, it is not just enough to create an internet access solution and call it a day. We need to make sure the tools are in place for internet access to be sustainable, to be resilient, to be affordable, and to be secure. This is why I work at the Internet Society. We're a global nonprofit organization with a mission to make sure the internet is for everyone that wants the internet. We are joined in this mission by over 120 chapters around the world, Canadian Internet Society being one of them, and over 90,000 individual members worldwide who share this mission and who are doing incredible things to make it happen. One of the ways that we get closer to our mission is by working with communities in some of the hardest places to connect, from Uluhaktak to Mount Everest, and urban areas that have been under-prioritized to bring fast, affordable, and reliable solutions to the internet. Now, change is not easy, and I do not want to minimize the challenges that we're facing in these uncertain times. But if there's one thing that we can be certain about, is that the internet brings opportunity. And if anything, it's even more reason to double down on the work that we're talking about here today. The internet was there for us when we were isolated not so long ago during COVID lockdown. And there are countless stories similar to how it has helped people in Uluhaktak share culture and earn a living by connecting with markets and audiences they might not otherwise have reached. But we can't take this for granted. The discussions on digital access today are so incredibly important. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that the one thing that you can count on during uncertain times is the internet. And we still have a lot of work to do to make sure every person in Canada has fast, affordable, and reliable access to the countless opportunities it offers to help us get through these hard times. No one should have to make decisions between groceries and the internet, no matter where they live. So what does that mean for our work ahead? First, I think we need to think about access beyond just building the infrastructure. Building the infrastructure is very important, but if people can't afford access, we're missing the point. It isn't just a question of who should have access. We need to start asking who actually has access. Because there are solutions to help make it happen in affordable ways, but if we're ignoring some of those obstacles, we're not going to get closer to that goal. We also need to support community-centered connectivity solutions. I talked this morning about an example in Uluhaktak, but there are many examples of how it is possible to build affordable internet access DIY solutions in communities despite the regulatory challenges. And we're going to hear more examples throughout the day about some of these DIY solutions that have really helped make connectivity more accessible to people. Imagine what we could do if we had policies that supported more of these community-driven solutions. If we had funding opportunities that were more accessible to communities who have the skill sets and desire to create their own solutions in a way that meets their actual needs. We'd be a lot closer to making our goal of connectivity for everyone. And finally, I think we also need to start focusing on informed internet policy. The internet offers so much opportunity and cannot take that for granted. As tempting as it might be in a year ahead to react with knee-jerk reactions to internet policy or protectionist approaches to the internet, we need to make sure that the internet stays open. Because if we are isolating ourselves and raising barriers on the internet, are we actually promoting access to the global internet? We've come a long way with internet access in just a few short decades. And for those of us who were around back then and remember it, it's kind of hard to remember before what it was like before the internet was so embedded in our day-to-day lives. Like despair, Canada's work to make sure the internet for everyone is unfinished. And we all have a responsibility to work together towards this shared goal, because it's going to take all of us, not just as communities, not just as policymakers, not just as organizations and companies, as humans who care about other humans. Because regardless of what uncertainties lie ahead, the internet should not be one of them. Thank you.